I've always been impressed with Derek Carr. I think he's been in a pretty dysfunctional situation. I think we all recognize that.
Derek Carr, former Las Vegas Raiders quarterback, just officially signed with the New Orleans Saints and had his introductory press conference, and it gave people insight on what to expect from the Saints, what is going to happen with Michael Thomas. That is a huge story. Will he end up playing with the Saints this year? We'll talk more about that. But it was interesting to see Derek Carr in high spirits, stoked to play with the New Orleans Saints.
You know, this really is a dream come true moment for me, and the warmth and the love that I felt, you know, from the city of New Orleans, Mrs. Benson, Mickey, DA, the whole organization, the whole city has been unbelievable.
And not only stoked to play with the New Orleans Saints, but also still giving some love to his former team, the Raiders. We know it was kind of awkward how he went out, but he still said, hey, thank the Raiders for my time there.
I just have to say thank you to the Raiders, to Oakland, Las Vegas. It wouldn't be me if I didn't say thank you to them. You know, I had 9 great years there, a lot of great memories, a lot of hard times, a lot of fun times, a lot of kids since then.
And it's so crazy to see that Derek Carr, the first coach he ever had, and Dennis Allen in 2014 with the Raiders, Carr is now going full circle and reuniting with his former head coach, and he had some kind words to say about him. Remember, Derek Carr was not really intended to be the starter immediately. The Raiders had Matt Schaub, but Derek Carr ended up winning that starting job thanks to somebody like Dennis Allen.
And DA, you know, how I feel about this man, hopefully me sitting here tells you what I think about him. You know, the opportunity, you gave me my first opportunity every time we played y'all, you know, since, you know, we weren't on the same team, I would always tell you thank you. I would say I was always thankful for DA because he gave me my chance. He trusted me with the keys to an organization.
But now we're looking at the Saints roster. We're wondering what they could possibly do and what is going to happen with Michael Thomas. We know as soon as Derek Carr was signed, Michael Thomas retweeted the signing. He seemed stoked. He even made this tweet where he said, thank the Lord that the Saints have signed Derek Carr. And it's kind of crazy because everybody expected Michael Thomas just a few months ago to be a cut candidate for the Saints. He hasn't played much at all in the past 2 years. 10 games in the past 2 years, has been injured since being one of the top receivers in the NFL. I mean, 2019, 2018, this is who he was, one of the top wide receivers in the NFL. But now he seems motivated and stoked now that Derek Carr is signing with the Saints. Cam Jordan also talking about this behind the scenes. Is Michael Thomas going to have a resurgence in his career and really just go off?
You know, me and Mike, we've, you know, gotten close through this process and talking. And, you know, the first time I don't think he wanted me to get off the phone. You know, I really enjoyed talking to him. And I told Mickey, I was like, you talk to Mike Thomas and you feel like you two could go out there and face the world. You know, I told my wife when I got off the phone and she was like, why are you smiling? I was like, I love this guy. You know, he's so competitive. He wouldn't even like try and recruit me. He's just like, hey, when are we getting to work? We're wasting time.
And as you can see, Derek Carr is stoked to play with this guy, and it sounds like the Saints are going to be able to get a deal done with Michael Thomas. We knew there was word on the street that they're trying to, you know, reach a new contract, perhaps tear away his old contract that will result in a lot of dead money for the Saints, and then try to renegotiate something new, probably like a prove-it deal, incentives-based contract. And it seems like Michael Thomas would love to take on that challenge now that the Saints do have Derek Carr. But it seems like Derek Carr really likes the Saints. He reiterated how he made sure that they checked every box and he did not want to have any doubt at all, and he has no doubt that the Saints are the best pick for him. And so it seems pretty cool that he's motivated and optimistic about the future with this team. And it was really interesting how not only people like Peyton Manning and Michael Thomas were low-key involved in the recruiting process with Derek Carr, but also primarily Dree Brees.
But he called me. And I had a free afternoon. He called me, and I just asked questions. You know, asked questions about the organization, asked questions about, you know, Mickey, Pete, you know, the city, you know, everything. You know.
And it's cool to see Derek Carr take a long time to make this decision, reach out to people that he trusts, and finally make the right choice. And Dree Brees welcoming him to New Orleans is awesome to see. But hey, watch out, Dree Brees. I think Derek Carr might break a lot of your single season records. Derek Carr had 3,500 pass yards last year, even though he didn't even play the last 2 games. And he's consistently had 4,000 yard seasons, especially under John Gruden. And now when you're looking at the quarterbacks in the NFC. Now that Derek Carr is here, the rest of the NFC South has to get it together and figure out what they're going to do. It's kind of crazy to think that Derek Carr might be, like really one of the best quarterbacks in the NFC. Like a lot of people want to hate on him, but this guy has all the numbers to back it up. And he's had some great years, even with all the drama going on in Vegas. And you have here Jalen Hurts. Obviously, you'd put him number 1 or number 2 just because he was at the Super Bowl recently, dual threat quarterback. Still not the most accurate guy, right? And still young. Matthew Stafford and Kyler Murray. I think these guys would be top 5 of the list for sure, but they were injured pretty much all of last year. They really need to prove themselves next year to be considered, a top 5 quarterback in any category. Are they healthy? And Kyler Murray is clearly not going to play at all next year. And so you have Dak Prescott, who, has accomplished some things in his career. And now that there's no Rodgers, there's just really Jared Goff and Kirk Cousins in the NFC North. I think Derek Carr is very clearly a top 5 and could even end up being maybe the second best or even the best quarterback in the NFC next year, just because there's tons of injuries on this list and tons of people who are still somewhat unproven. So I think the Saints got a steal here, man. They might end up in terms of passing statistics, because we're not talking about running the football like freaking Jalen Hurts. Derek Carr might end up being the best QB in the NFC. And it was funny to see Derek Carr take a jab about being benched.
Remarkable thing. I mean, I don't know, how many games have you missed? 3? 2, 3?
Yeah.
I mean,
two this year.
Is it like
but also talk about how, this experience with the Raiders really motivated him and lit a fire under him to go ahead and do some damage with the new team and sort of prove himself again. So it's really cool to see him in this position. Even though he's 31 years old, he's been very healthy throughout his career. Like he said, he didn't miss any games last year due to injury, just due to being benched. And the guy is hungry. The guy is still hungry to prove himself. Most of the time when you get these veteran QBs who've accomplished a lot, they're sort of complacent. But Derek Carr is in a different position because, he did not want to leave Vegas. Let's just be real about how that happened. And now he is going to try to prove himself again. And I think he's in a good spot, in a good position to do so. And there's been a lot of confusion on how Derek Carr left the Raiders. And let me just tell you, man, the fan base is split. I personally think a majority of the fans blame the coaching and do not blame Derek Carr for that past season with the Raiders. And that was really an outlier. We never saw a season that bad from Derek Carr in such a long time. And Carr talked about the fact that, he moves on and moves forward, but his family, mainly David Carr, still are vocal and try to defend their little brother out there on social media.
Yeah. So I feel bad for some of y'all if y'all tweet something bad. It's not coming from me. All right. But they're brothers and they're going to protect their own. So you guys got to get used to that. He's my biggest fan. Both of them are. They're my biggest fans, but they're my brothers. At the end of the day, we're family. Just like I try and teach these boys, when everyone else doesn't have your back, y'all are going to have each other's back. When, maybe someone didn't have my back, they're going to have my back. And that's what family does. Like, forget anybody else who doesn't like that. I'd rather my brothers have my back no matter what.
And a lot of people give David Carr a hard time because he's been sort of dropping hints as to what happened last year and how everything wasn't A-okay with Josh McDaniels. And hey, Derek Carr's not going to say anything. He's going to continue to try to be professional and just move forward and help his new team. But as an older brother, as a family member, you can't help but want to sort of clear the air and talk about the truth of what really happened. So I understand that the Carr family still speaks out and defends their brother, and why wouldn't you? But I do believe the Saints have a great roster. Derek Carr says he's optimistic about all the weapons on the offensive side of the ball. Great right tackle, right? And Trevor Penning is coming into his own at left tackle. Derek Carr, obviously wants a solid offensive line, and I think he's going to have that with the Saints. And you obviously have Chris Olave, Mike Thomas. Looks like he's coming back. Him and Chris Olave, that's going to be freaking insane. You even have Michael Thomas hanging out with Chris Olave right now, posting about it on social media. So I think the optimism is there. And Shaheed, the speedster, this guy would be great for Derek Carr to use. Some gadget plays and some deep throws. Derek Carr, really accurate in deep passing. So I think this is really a good fit. And then you got Johnson, who Derek Carr talked about at the press conference today. Really excited about him. And obviously Kamara, he's going to be suspended for a little bit, but the guy will be back. And I think Derek Carr will use him wisely. And this defense, this is literally going to be the best defense Derek Carr has ever, played opposite of in his entire life. You got Marshawn Lattimore there, Tyrann Mathieu, you guys know, Demario Davis, Marcus May, Cam Jordan, a lot of great pieces, but I do think they need to try to, establish the defensive tackle position, bring in some reinforcements there. They're also going to need to re-sign Marcus Davenport, stuff like that, but they still have a solid team ready to compete like we talked talked about a weaker division, and it was just awesome to see Derek Carr and the rest of the crew super motivated to get started. And the fact that we finally know that the Michael Thomas and Derek Carr matchup is definitely going to happen. It looks like it's headed in that direction. And this could end up being one of the more scary offenses in the NFC. We talked about the other quarterbacks in the NFC. You have Aaron Rodgers likely leaving, and also some people dealing with injuries like Kyler Murray and Matthew Stafford. So I think it's wide open for Derek Carr, and now's the time for him to prove all the haters wrong and prove the coaching staff of the Raiders wrong for moving on from him. And I think he's determined to do so and has all the pieces to accomplish that goal and help take the Saints to places that they haven't been since they've had Dree Brees. I think this is going to be amazing and a match made in heaven. I am a Raiders fan, but this is my NFL channel where I cover NFL stories that I'm really interested in, some of my favorite players, and just some of my favorite headlines that are happening around the league. So make sure you subscribe to this channel if you want more NFL content from me and more content following teams like the New Orleans Saints. Peace out, everybody, and I hope you have a good one.